Well, thank you, as I say, for inviting me here. Time, I know, is quite limited, and I do want to make a commitment that we will finish at 2 o'clock so that you can have a break and to get some fresh air and some sunlight. So I may not cover all of the slides that I have, but by way of introduction, what I'd like to do is to begin really by giving you just an idea of the structure of my presentation. I'd like to thank the two previous speakers and to build on some of the points that they have raised. I'm going to talk a little bit about key policy issues and the main challenges that practitioners and those people delivering and designing services across the United Kingdom are facing at the present time. And I will invite you to think about whether some of the experiences in the UK do actually resonate with your experience here. I'm going to talk a little bit about a very important subject which our policymakers are pressing us all on in our current economic climate, which is about the evidence for careers work. It's fine that we have European policies. It's wonderful that we have national strategies. But the fundamental question is, how do we know that careers work actually makes a difference? And if the funding was taken away, would anyone out there really notice a difference? And I want to talk a little bit about that. And then I'd like to end by sharing with you a UK-wide campaign which was launched in November of last year, designed to raise the profile of careers and to make careers much more meaningful for the citizen and the man and woman on the street, as well as the employer and the policymaker. In a sense, it's a mechanism to try and have a stronger voice for careers that actually, hopefully, will influence our policy. I want to just begin by setting what I have to say in an international context. I was given the privilege, really, of writing the UK country report to feed into the International Symposium in New Zealand in November 2009. And my task there was to describe in very, very short sentences what are the key strengths in the UK in terms of its career guidance provision, and where are the areas of weakness. And I think one of the most important things to invite you to think, whether you're a policymaker or a practitioner or a manager here, whether these 4 themes actually mean anything to you in your everyday work. And the first broad theme that was discussed at the International Symposium was transformational technology. How is technology being harnessed to reach more people at a time and a place that's appropriate for their needs at the lowest possible cost? How have we used the knowledge? Marguerite talked about the knowledge. How are we using the knowledge to prove that what we do actually works? Raimo made the point about collaboration. In the UK, we have a new coalition government, an alliance between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats. And some will say they're in their honeymoon period. But what's been quite interesting in our developments in the UK is that where people always talked about collaboration and cooperation, we're now hearing a language of we need more coalitions at a local level, a coalition between the people delivering the services and a coalition between the funders who are providing the services. So isn't it interesting how language immediately begins to have an impact on us all? And most importantly, this whole issue of how are our services being designed to be culturally relevant to the people that they serve in our multi-cultural society. And I suppose really before beginning to sort of think about the policy goals, which, these 3 main policy goals, I would suggest, are pretty common across Europe and indeed further afield in terms of what our career development services, career guidance services, or career education services? What are they trying to actually do, perform in policy terms? And these three broad categories are, I would suggest, fairly well accepted policy goals. But one of the things that's happening in the UK in particular is this need to reframe the support policies for lifelong learning into greater emphasis on employability. And I've also been, I read the newspapers a lot and I listen to the news a lot, so I'm going to give you a few examples of things that are happening. So in our newspaper at present in the UK, we've actually got some headlines which says, number one, we've got to reduce Britain's 156 billion deficit. It's a lot of knots, isn't it, at the end of a figure? And of that, we've got 170 billion a year that we spend on social security. And so our new government is basically saying we are going to have to make some very, very tough decisions. They're going to look at welfare cuts. They're going to look at pension cuts. They're going to look at spending cuts. And they're going to look at tax rises. Does this sound familiar in a German context? It does. You're making me feel good already. Because it could make pretty depressing reading when we actually listen to our ministers telling us that we are going to move into an age of austerity, where that we will be looking at significant cuts which will actually be announced in the next few months. And our government's approach at the moment is to say, how can we ease the pain that we know we're all about to endure? And how are we going to get it right that we cut the services that actually will have minimum impact, as it were, on reducing the quality of people's lives? And so in our newspaper it says, so how much exactly of a say will Mr. Osborne, he's our Chancellor of the Exchequer, how much will he give the public? And so what has started in recent weeks across the UK, not just in England, but in Wales and Scotland and in Northern Ireland as well, is this idea of let's talk to the citizens about where do they think the cuts should come. And the citizens, here are some examples. A woman from Clapham in London says, in health and the civil service, there are certainly inefficiencies. I would make substantial cuts there. Hamish, who's also from London but sounds Scottish, Hamish says the welfare state is out of hand. Cut the benefits. Get back to a place where it's not advantageous to be drawing benefit. Dion suggests that we should cut our spending on arms. And Michael the butcher, and I thought this was quite amusing, said, we need to cut the fat. Butcher, we need to cut the fat from Whitehall, which is our central government, and give the money to more people. Now, I just want to use that to illustrate to you that we are in this major transformation agenda. And when we look at, well, what's the case for investment in local services for local people, where we're helping them to develop career management competencies? Some people would say good quality careers education and guidance is very simple. What we're trying to do is we're trying to improve individuals' confidence and resilience to cope with a very uncertain labour market and indeed a fast-changing education market. And so across the UK, and when I say across the UK, I'm going to give you examples from England, from Northern Ireland, from Scotland, and from Wales, where I've actually been working with the governments in all four of those countries to really look at this issue